This episode is brought to you by Mortgage Workflow Partners and the Mastering Encompass series, both for users as well as administrators. You can find out all the information about it over at masteringencompass.com. Also, if you'd like to check out what we're doing on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel using the @MasteringEncompass handle. And make sure you stay up to date on all the information, not just with podcasts, but also video content that we bring to you as often as possible. Now let's get on to the episode. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Larry Bailey, Mortgage Workflow Partners. Welcome. Today is December 5th, 2023. We got the chats going. Hey, Katie. We got the chats going. If you're listening to this replay, keep in mind we meet every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, unless there's a holiday. And we discuss all things that are interesting in the community. We had somebody talk about coincidentally earlier today, talking about the document tracking setting for including today in the document tracking or not including today. That is the question. We get some feedback on that. But today's topic, we try to meet as a community, answer questions, and talk about topics. I foobarred and did not post in ahead of time, but today's topic is best practices of document management. I'd love to get everybody's feedback. Some of the subtopics of that will be talking about document, role access to documents, business rules, stacking templates, the idea of protecting documents, sending files, using Investor Connect, and then last but not least, migrating any documents off of Encompass onto a long-term storage facility for record keeping and for the ability, just in case you change your mind and you don't want to be on Encompass anymore. Like, what about that? So first of all, anybody have any questions that has come up? We are into the last month of the year, and I fully expect everybody has got a list of projects that you never got to. I know I have a big list. But you did other work. So quick poll out for those that joined today. What are some of the biggest projects or any project, what are some of the projects that you had hoped you would complete, but you didn't get to it? And it could have been from a market condition. It could have been because somebody moved your cheese and you needed money that they didn't give you. Or it could have been something that you just found out about at the end of the year. That's just not enough time to get it done. I can tell you one of the biggest things that I didn't do this year that I really wanted to do was to finish my book on basically how to run an Encompass, how to run your mortgage company using Encompass. That was my biggest moonshot for the year, and it just got to be I got to be too busy. Enhanced conditions is on Candace's. So I fully support that as a big project. I'm sorry you didn't get to it this year, but I would definitely encourage you to focus in on that, at least on Q1. Luba says exploring task-based workflows. Yeah, they're easy ones to at least start, right? So, but getting onto them is tough if you got everybody else's eyes or somewhere else. Angie says setting up a vendor for asset verification for day one. Angie, I'm really curious about that because I've heard plenty of folks. I've heard plenty of folks talk about the VOE or VOI or VOA, and there's, this is not new, right? These things have been out there for a few years, but to get them to work in workflow reliably is one thing, and then to get most of your borrowers to use it so it's effective in your workflow, something so different. Jolene's thing that she didn't get done is getting their new bank set up and running. I'm with you on that, Jolene. I want to get that done for you too. Robert says workflow and buy-in is key to VOA, right, Robert? So you can get people, and the buy-in isn't just internal, right, Rob? So it's your borrowers too. They have to really buy into the whole idea of putting in their banking credentials. So you canceled. So they actually canceled. Robert actually canceled the whole VOA project. When you say buy-in, was it from internal teams, external borrowers, maybe a little both? Both, right? Yeah. Jolene says, though, I would also love to get away from loan program templates and use rules to make changes. So pick one, right? I would say, Jolene, pick one loan program, tear it down to what you need, and then I'm guessing you're thinking of using DDM rules for programs. That's interesting. So Robert just goes on to say about the VOA experience, buyers were not comfortable with providing their banking credentials for Finicity to work. I'm not going to feel comfortable with that either. And I said that from day one. Like, I'm barely comfortable giving Mint my information. And the only reason why I'm okay with that is because they're part of Intuit, which is where I do TurboTax through. So I'm like, what the hell is the difference? But now they're killing Intuit. Intuit's killing Mint, and they're forcing everybody over to Credit Karma. I'm not doing it again. Not doing it again. So thanks Intuit for nothing. And I've been on this whole thing even with Google this year. Like, I don't know if everybody's a Google. I know you're Luba, you're a Google shop. I'm pissed at Google for canceling all kinds of stuff. Like, I'm literally moving all my pictures over to Apple from Google, and it's a pain in the ass. I moved my email over to hey.com because Google just like up and kills crap. So I'm kind of ticked off about that. SD cards. Wait, Brian, what's SD cards? I don't know what that means. Yeah, things just disappear one day. I know, right? Luba's like, what the frick? Oh, SD cards for pics. Oh, I have a whole drive. But the thing is, how do you share an SD card? Like, how are you going to solve for that? You can't. Yeah, I did the whole thing. Put it in 3 and put it in different locations. I did DVD backups because you can get more on DVDs. Yeah, I know. But anyway, why not just subscribe to everything, Brian, and just be an American like everybody else and just subscribe your life away? Hey, speaking of just to pull us back on topic, great conversation. For those that are just coming, Prime for Picks, Luba, you're crazy. But so is Google. Anyway, today's all about document management. And so first of all, role access to documents. I'm going to bring it up on screen, and I want everybody to be truthfully honest about how you are running your role access to documents as administrators. And see if I can bring up the correct Encompass. All right, cool. At least I got that going for me. So, on role access to documents, a lot of folks get fouled up in these business rules because Encompass, of course, only does by roles, but then there was this checkbox. So I think I might have talked about this before in the community, but first of all, how many people know that this box exists? A, and then B, how many know what it does? And then C, how many people have it checked? And so if you want to do that in any order, I don't really care, but I'm really curious, like, guys, go into your Encompass, go into your role access to documents. And the reason why I talk about this is because, like, Brian's got his check. Brian, do you know why checking that's a good idea? I'd love to get your feedback on it. The challenge with this checkbox is that if you've got folks that have multiple personas, then they're also part of multiple roles. And so with this checkbox checked, you now have to worry about the role assigned to the user. Without it checked, all you have to do is worry about the name and the file contacts tool. So this is one of those things, Brian, I don't know if you've ever had a chance to review this if you have it checked, but have you, in your workflow, do you have sensitive documents? And if so, have you logged in as a user that mimics the same sets of personas that everybody has to make sure nobody can actually see the sensitive document that you think they can't see? Now, if you've done that, terrific, and you don't have to answer it, but you don't think you do that now. So the typical sensitive document that I'm talking about here is purchase advice or investor lock confirmation. And so, like, Kenzie May came out with a product, and some others might have it too, but they came out with a plugin that basically you could identify a single, even attachment name, and if that attachment exists in a document, set the document access in that eFolder document to very specific roles. The problem is, again, that if you have that box checked, it can undermine the whole basis, because if you've got multiple personas and those personas span multiple roles and you've got that box checked, they've got all the roles that are in your eFolder document. And if I just confuse the hell out of you, I'm sorry. But it's important because in here, again, MWP training is a loan officer, but if MWP training, if this is checked and MWP training has a persona that is within the role of post-closer, MWP training will still see this document. Sorry, Luba, you know how I love to create problems for people by telling them what's really going on. This is probably one of those moments. So again, all of this only matters if you're storing sensitive documents in your eFolder. If you are, please put it on your agenda to making sure that you pick at least one or more of your accounts, replicate in your test account, replicate somebody based upon all their personas, make sure the user groups line up, and then go log in as them in a loan file and see if you can see stuff that you're not supposed to see. That's usually what I do. Kind of brute force stuff, but that's usually how I deal with it. Because you can't unsee what people see. It's one of those things. So bear that in mind. So if anybody has any feedback on that or stories they want to share, feel free. On that topic of can you delete roles you're no longer using, Angie says, first of all, you cannot delete a role that's active in any milestone template. If you try to do that, you'll get yelled at from Encompass. So if a role was ever used in a loan file, the answer is no, never. Because it's a big database, you never delete things that were ever used in a database. But if you keep in mind that if you want to make sure that role doesn't continue on with anybody in particular, what you can do is create a user group that's like a garbage user group, like literally call it garbage or delete it or do not use. And then what you can do is pull personas out of that user group, that role, and just add in a user group. So in other words, if I wanted to pull archiver, like let's say I don't know what that is, and I just want to add in the the training user group, I can remove the archiver and save it, and now I don't have to worry about somebody having an archiver. I don't have to worry about a persona somehow being assigned with that role, with that checkbox checked. So again, hopefully I'm not confusing people. My ideas are usually kind of crazy, but they're clever because I understand how the settings work, and I can leverage that to I can leverage it. So using user groups in place of personas is very, very helpful for things that for sensitive. This is another way to get through if you're dealing with sensitive documents. You can, a lot of companies have lock desk role, and they're like, well, how do I control role access to documents? Well, you can create a role called sensitive documents, and you can create a user group for the people that have access to the sensitive documents. And then when you get down into role access to documents, you can just simply say sensitive documents, see sensitive documents, and you're done. So you don't have to have a persona. No, Candace. No. You do not. See, I just proved it right there. Didn't know that? See that price of admission right there. No, you can create all kinds of roles, with user groups that are unique. We're used to it with protected docs. I usually train on using user groups for that. But like exception committee, everybody usually has some kind of exception committee, and I use user groups for that role, so I don't have to worry about multiple personas. That's how you deal with that. So if you ever want to talk more about it, let me know. Hopefully everybody understood that. To continue on with protected documents and talking about personas, keep in mind that if you're not using protected documents, my recommendation is always to go into all your personas, and you can use a settings report if you're not sure about who has it, in case you have a lot of personas to go through. But if you go to eFolder, if you're not using protected documents, I'm always recommending to make sure all of this is unchecked. So if you do ever engage in protected document workflow, you can make sure that you assign the job function to the persona that should have access to edit protected documents, Remember, this is not seeing the document or accessing the document. This is just modifying the document if it's been protected. If you don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to protected documents, first of all, does anybody not know what I'm talking about when I say protected document workflow? If everybody knows what it is, I'm not going to waste your time. And if you're watching this, oh, you don't know, Angie? So protected document workflow, again, the typical use case is underwriters, right? So underwriters review a file and they are tired of somebody adding or removing a file after they've already underwritten the file, and it leads to salability issues, right? Or underwriting, quality control issues. So they're like, dude, Encompass admin person, I want you to never allow anybody else to modify the contents of that document on a file that I've underwritten. And so that's where your protected documents workflow comes from. To enable that, what you do is you go into role access to documents, and you have to create a role. In my case, I use protected docs with an asterisk. And the reason why I do that is because when I go into an eFolder and I want to take a document and I want to assign the protected docs, what happens is you'll get this pop-up. But what happens is the asterisk P comes at the beginning, so it's easy to organize to see which documents are protected. And so if I had a whole bunch of documents in here, I'll just throw a bunch in here. Is it this? Yeah. So if I throw a whole bunch of documents in here, I can literally see really quick which ones are protected. And if they've already got conditions over here, I can highlight which ones have conditions, pretend. And I can right mouse click and set that document access rights and protect them in just a few clicks as an underwriter. So now I can go through and make sure that nobody else can put another bank statement file in there if they don't have the edit rights in their persona. What they would have to do is they would have to create another bank statement document and then assign that to the condition and then fulfill the condition. And that's the way you deal with protected documents. This leads me over into document stacking templates, because what usually happens next is somebody's like, but dude, I got to ship that thing and I don't want to have a whole bunch of extra documents. And I say, okay, that's fine. What you're going to do is you're going to get into your in your eFolder setup in your document stacking templates. Anytime that you have a document marked as bank statements, so if I come over here and I add a bank statement, this guy, that bank statement will include for every document that is marked as bank statements. Doesn't matter if there's one or there's 50. All bank statements will come here. You don't need to consolidate them on the document stacking template for the export. Again, I'm aware that there's some plugins out there that will consolidate empty documents in your eFolder to make it easier. So when you look at your eFolder, you don't see a bunch of repetitive documents. That's cool. But that's not really where the money is. The money is when you go to export in your document stacking templates, so that if you have, again, bank statements, I didn't save it, but bank statements were there. If there's one bank statement document or 50, they all go right there. Doesn't matter. So lean on your document stacking templates here. Not only will this help you with your Investor Connect exports, but it's also going to make sure that when you get in your document export templates, you pick your export. So if I wanted to come over here and I wanted to go to into pipeline, and I wanted to go into export out my eFolders, right? So I'm just going to do this one. I got to go do my default first. Testing environment. All right. So if I want to export this out, I go to eFolder, export, select the loan only. It's going to bring open the stacking template that I've created, and then you click next through it. Now there's nothing in here because it's a test environment, but this is where the money is, these doc export templates. And the doc export templates only exist because of document stacking templates. And if you're managing your document stacking template here, not only is it helpful for your export templates, but also when you get into your loan file in your eFolder, you can leverage your stacking template here as well. And if you're savvy to how these things work, you know that there's two ways to manage your document stacking templates. The first way is to act like a document group where you only see what's in the template. which is what this is doing, because the checkbox displays only the documents included in the stacking order. If you want to show everything and just put it in a simple stack, you would uncheck that. So the experience difference is with these two is if you go in here and I do the first one, notice there's 18 documents. It'll stay 18, but there's a little bit of a wiggle here in the order, right? So if I go to none, it's 1003s. In the second place, if I go to copy, it goes to the top. But when I go to new, it's only 3, because that makes it function like a document group. So not only can you get your stack visualized, but you can also exclude everything not in the stack. And then again, if you have that little second checkbox in the bottom, you can right mouse click and you can save documents as, and it will automatically include everything in the stack without having to select everything. So that's the last little detail of the document stacking template in here, is to make sure you leverage this guy, because it'll actually automatically select all of these if you only select one, whether you're printing those or you're saving them. And the other one, of course, is to, save as, right? That's what it means to save, like save as a PDF. Any questions so far? Is this new? Is everybody cool? Anybody, this is helping anybody that's in the meeting today? Hopefully it is, because I find when I go through training and I go through like workflow reviews and I help companies become more efficient using Encompass, these are the things that I find are typically not really understood or not leveraged. And so I see a lot of folks come in here and they do this, and then they save as, or they go to do whatever, or they go into here to export. They didn't realize they could export from the pipeline view. So hopefully that's meaningful for you. Last one, of course, is again sending files. So you want to make sure you use your stacking template before you send. And why do you need to send? If you have to download, if you have to send all your stuff to an investor and you're not using Investor Connect, hopefully you're using Investor Connect. Hopefully you're working with your investors to make sure they're all on EPC. Just like hopefully you've been working with your service partners to make sure they're all EPC enabled, because the Investor Connect for 2024 is going to be much more a more comprehensive experience than what we've had so far, mostly because so far there's been a disjointed connection of investors to Encompass. Everybody's kind of using different kinds of technology. And now within Investor Connect, moving into EPC, Encompass Partner Connect, it's all tied together on the same standard, the same APIs, the same in and outs. And so if you've not involved yourself in Investor Connect, you need to. This is all happening in the next few quarters, Angie. So the game plan for ICE, again, is to get everybody on Encompass Partner Connect, really focusing on vendors, but also working with investors. Typically, these are the aggregators, right? But also working with Fannie and Freddie to be able to, from inside of Encompass, be able to get directly into Investor Connect. And again, if you've got, I don't have it enabled here, but if you've got it enabled, you'll see Connect. You'll see the Investor Connect tab that comes up for that. I think on here, I don't have any packages. This is really for the Connect platform, because I don't have Consumer Connect loaded up in here, but that's what that would be for. The only other thing I had really for today was the migration offsite. A lot of folks deal with the issue of how to get your Encompass eFolder for offsite long-term retention, as well as for other purposes. And still to this moment, historically speaking, it'd be a third-party app. The great news is the version 3 APIs now fully support documents. Angie, if you've been asked to purge files in Encompass, you mean, right? Is that what you mean? Like purge them out of Encompass, but retain them? Yeah. Right. So you've got it. What do you do? And the reality is, that's something. If you're looking honestly for the best, I'm going to pitch you on Awesome Technology's Switch platform. It seamlessly pulls out data from endpoint to endpoint, so you can store all of your loan data as well as all of your loan documents for offsite storage. If you want more information about that, let me know. And I can connect you with the folks over at Awesome Technologies. Honestly, not even close for what those guys are doing compared to other providers, especially on the topic of document and data, endpoint to endpoint. So core, whether it's core transition out of Encompass to core or out of Encompass to long-term storage. Angie, if you're trying to just delete things, you can just, I'm confused. Are you talking about just deleting? Like, I don't understand that. When you say purge files, why not just, if they're ready to be deleted, why not just delete them if you don't have to retain them? Oh, you already store them in the core. Just delete it. I mean, obviously, check. But keep in mind, if you delete a file in here, right, once you delete it from in here, it goes over to the trash folder right here. So the only time you permanently delete something is when you actually remove it from trash. So if you go to delete this from in here, it'll give you the warning, are you sure you want to permanently delete? You can always restore from here too. In here, you just basically move it back to your folder, the idea of restoring. So yeah, I'm not quite sure why you can't do that now if that's the case. So obviously make sure you pick the right files. That would be horrible if you pick the wrong files. Yeah, it's scary because again, you could put them in trash. Maybe you move them to trash for like a year. I don't know if you can do that, but move them to trash for a year. And then if nobody's still looking for them, then it's okay to delete. I don't know. Cross-check between loan numbers in one and versus the other. It does not, deleting a loan file does not delete the contact, right? So you'll still have borrower contacts in here, business contacts. It won't affect anything else, right? It's just like I deleted this guy. Like, I don't care about this thing. Just delete. Bye. Yes. See ya. Goodbye forever. Theoretically, it's stored on the server somewhere with ICE if you had to restore it. But anyway, that's all I got. That's the big thing. Candace says we have clients come back to us 10 years later because they can't find their paperwork. So that's a company decision. I mean, do you keep a whole file for one borrower who can't keep track of their own paperwork because they're under audit, which is the only reason that it comes back, right? Somebody's dead or somebody's getting killed by the IRS and they want stuff, I guess. But if you divorce, well, it's all public, right? So, I mean, I don't understand. Because they I didn't know you signed up for that mortgage. Well, if the lender didn't follow procedures, I don't know. This is all kinds of legal stuff. But the reality is it's a recorded deed of trust or mortgage. Besides that, if the loan is active, you've got copies of the paperwork somewhere if the loan is active. So if the loan is inactive and you're required to keep it for 7 years, and then you purge it and they come back to you 3 years later, well, that sucks for them. It's not your problem. Yeah. And when you say, Candace, when you say purge files after 10 years, you mean 10 years from closing, or do you mean 10 years from completion? 10 years from closing. Yeah. And again, if you're no longer servicing them and you've got no responsibilities to retain those files, that would make sense. Again, you don't own the file anymore, so why do you still have it? That was sold. Obviously, you're going to keep records of who it was sold to and that information, but like the borrower documents, that's a liability. And I absolutely encourage people to delete things that you have no reason for having, because God forbid something happens and somebody else gains access to it, it's a liability. Paid off loans you retain for 6 years, yeah, and that makes sense. And then once it's after 6 years, see ya. So, hey, today's been all about, best practices of document management. I hope it's been helpful for you that came today. I'm always trying to bring value. We've got an event here this week on the 7th, and then next week is the end of the year for the shows, at least for the 12th and the 14th. So the operations, best practice management for operations on Thursday. And then next week, best practices of condition management settings. And then last but not least, executive ownership best practices, run your company like a master. That's where I kind of get into like, what am I doing all day as a mortgage company owner? What should I be doing? So hopefully all this stuff is valuable for you. If you ever want me to cover different topics, let me know. And Candace says I'm going to re-examine what I'm doing for protected docs. That's a newer development around here anyway. Yeah, check it out. And if you ever have any questions, post them in the community and we'll talk about it like we always like to. So you guys have a great rest of your day. And hopefully you're getting everything prepared for end of the year as you should. John, thanks for coming. Robert, thank you. Candace, you got it. Thank you. Wendy, thanks. Jolene, go open up that bank already. Jeez, oh man, what are you waiting for? See you, Brian. Chris, you guys take care. Donata, Chris. Donata. See you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.